Well, that's very fascinating to hear what kind of tools and technologies you're using. And just out of curiosity, what would you say are, you mentioned C++ plus plus, and then this other new tool that you use, which Shibluster is not familiar with, and neither am I. But other than that, what are some key technologies and tools that you think that you are using in your daily work, or how integral are they to your um, role? Because I'm just trying to gauge basically what level of, I guess, how latest the tools are that are used in the federal field, and what the practices are like, whether they're dated or whether they're really changing often and keeping up with the times and the changes in technology. So I was just curious about if you could just share your
Yeah, it's funny because when I first met, there's two DevOps guys, me and then my other DevOps coworker. So when I had that initial meeting with them, he's like, "Tell me about your background, what everything you learned." When I explained everything that I did in the TS4U curriculum, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's exactly what we're exactly what we're looking for." And I was like, "Oh yeah, perfect." So what I use is everything what TS4U taught us, right? Docker, Kubernetes, GitLab CI/CD, a little bit of Terraform, right? But those big three things TS4U was heavy on, especially in sure you know, right? Docker and Kubernetes, and then Jenkins, and then also GitLab CI/CD. So everything that we learned from the bootcamp is in demand. And when I was explaining to him how I used Docker, Kubernetes, how I explained to him how I used it, he was like, "Yeah, it's spot on, right? That's exactly what we do at my company." So he was like, "That's great, right?" So up to date, yeah, everything we learned, and I'm sure TS4U probably has a bunch of new stuff, right? Compared to when me and you were doing the boot camp, because it's just continuous learning and new things are being added. But yeah, it's like especially if people are going the DevOps route, they're doing the DevOps boot camp, everything that's on our course curriculum is up to date to the industry standards. So it's pretty much, yeah, everything I learned through the boot camp, everything is up to date to what all the jobs are asking for us. And you could probably testify that too, right? Where the tools we learned and the technologies we learned is mostly what you use on your day-to-day job. So it's not like we're learning something in the course and then once we get out into the work field, we're just thrown out in the fire and be like, "Oh, we didn't learn this or that." There's three, four big technologies that we learn and that are currently relevant to the market.
Okay, that's wonderful to hear, because I'm just trying to bust the myth that, what we learn is not applicable. And I just wanted to clarify whether that applied to the federal side as well. I've heard rumors that apparently on the federal side that sometimes technology is dated or practices are dated. They're maybe not the latest, or the things that are in demand now may not apply. But it's nice to hear that what we have been taught applies to both tracks. And it's nice to know that TS3 always is staying on top of what is in demand. And that's very relieving, because even when I was on the market, it was exactly what we learned that is required, and people are looking for and is the most sought after. And really quickly, I just wanted to follow up. Do you have any GitOps practices in the nature of the projects you're working on? And also, what is like the main cloud, or what cloud platforms are you using for deployment? If it's, you don't have to get into too much detail. I know you're in the federal, you're doing gov projects, but if you could just share a little bit about it.
Yeah, so your second question, the cloud platform is AWS, exactly. Because from my understanding, AWS is definitely the most, I would say, most in demand cloud where I know there's the Google GCP and then uh, the other one I forgot, but for the most part, we definitely use AWS, and I think the industry standard right now. I know it depends from project to project and stuff like that, but I would say the industry standard is definitely is the AWS cloud, and learning the basics of it and kind of intermediate through the boot camp was great, right? So then, because once you're on the job, you go, of course, you go deeper dive into the AWS cloud, but it comes very naturally, right? Because learning AWS is not too, it's not the hardest thing in the world, right? So when you deep dive into it onto the actual job, you just expand the skill set more, right? It's not too difficult for you to learn the nitty gritty things of AWS. So we use that as our cloud provider, but it's also sometimes it's a hybrid cloud too, right? So sometimes there's two clouds depending on, what work has to be done. But in your first question regarding GitOps, I haven't done anything primarily regarding GitOps yet. I think maybe our main DevOps guy, he probably works with that a little bit more, but I think that will come down the line as time goes by. But nothing with GitOps yet, from my experience.